Welcome to Foxflix Rice. I am Fox, and with me today is my Anarchy, Nathan Stewart. Hi, Nathan.
Hello.
So, bit of background. It's all his fault, as in Nathan's, why this show exists. Apparently, he had an idea to do a podcast years ago around Asian film, and I've been wanting to do the Foxflix project for about 2 years now, which is primarily YouTube. It'll be retrospectives, different things. Hopefully some interviews at some point. Who knows? And this show will be monthly. Hopefully, that's what we're hoping to get to. You get 2 this month though, because we're doing special. But yeah, Happy New Year, Year of the Tiger, obviously. So, shall we get started? Is there anything you would like to say first, Nathan?
No, just
anything about yourself, who you are?
No, nothing to add there, really. My name's Nathan. I've been watching East Asian films for maybe 20 years, I guess, somewhere around that mark, I guess. And big fan, mainly into Japan and Korea. And just pleased to be here talking film with a good friend of mine.
All right. So, Nathan, any upcoming releases for the Year of the Water Tiger that you are excited for?
Yeah, a couple.
Couple.
Quite looking forward to that the new Toei anniversary film. I don't think it's got a title yet, has it?
Oh, that's the one with Kimura playing Nobunaga, isn't it?
Yeah, very excited for that.
Yeah, that should be interesting.
Because I think he can pull that off. Yeah,
so it's funny. A few of my friends don't think so, but I think they only know him kind of from his dramas, Long Vacation and Hero, and kind of as the SMAP guy. And then obviously his work on the Judgment series most recently. So I think people are just used to him being that kind of romantic, sort of pretty boy romantic lead. So people are going like, Nobunaga, the warlord? What?
I think he's at the right age for it, though.
Well, that's the thing. He has matured a lot in his acting style, because obviously I first saw him in Long Vacation, years ago, the 90s, late 90s and stuff, through bootlegs, as it were. And, he does good, but I've noticed he has sort of morphed as he's done more. I mean, I want to pick up that Blade of Immortal of his at some point and see how he does in that, because I think
fun.
Is it? Right. I definitely think he could pull it off, though. I'm in the camp with you, basically. I think he could pull it off. As for me,
I think so.
Like local releases, I'm looking forward to Skinny Tiger, which, funnily enough, actually was announced as Tiger on the Beat 3. Did you know that?
I did not know.
Yeah,
actually.
So it was originally announced as Tiger on the Beat 3, and that was a contractual thing with Cinema City, because someone else was trying to make a film called Tiger on the Beat 3. So in order to kind of contractually keep the name and stop a fake Tiger on the Beat 3 coming out, that became the original announcement, which then obviously later on became Skinny Tiger, Fatty Dragon, but it was never intended to actually be Tiger on the Beat 3. They just called it that to protect the property.
That sounds like a Toei move, but yeah.
Well, Cinema City, Toy Hawk and all of that lot. So, so I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to the Blu-ray Dreadnought from Eureka. I think it's Eureka. I don't know how. Do you know how they prefer their name pronounced? I know I'm
absolutely no idea.
I'm going to get shit for this.
I've always said Eureka.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is I'm so used to a title having a different name, if that makes sense. Like the word is pronounced differently just for uniqueness. But yeah, I'm looking forward to Eureka. We'll go with Eureka then. I'm looking forward to their Blu-rays for Running Out of Time 1 and 2 when they come out, because I haven't seen those. So that'll be first watches for me. I'm also looking forward to, as I mentioned, Dreadnought, and I'm looking forward to Black Cat.
Oh yes, forgot
from
about
88 Films, which obviously we will be covering in March. Super excited for that. And I'm looking forward to them diving into more Cat 3 films and keeping that going. I mean, is there any particular Cat 3 ones you'd like to see them put out?
It's tough because we've got stricter censors.
Yeah, well, so far they've been lucky. So, I mean, I wasn't expecting Black Cat, to be honest. I knew it got a Blu-ray in May of last year. I think it was May. I think it was last year. The last 2 years for me are a blur because of obvious reasons. But I knew it got a Blu-ray in Hong Kong there from Panorama. So, yeah, I was quite surprised to see that suddenly come over. But I mean, who knows at this point, because they're able to put out Robotics and Rikio uncut. So, I mean,
you've got to think they're at least trying for the classics: Untold Story, Doctor Lamb.
I would be very surprised if Naked Killer doesn't make an appearance at some point, because
Is that on Blue?
Yeah, no, not at the moment. Wait, is it? I'm trying to remember. I know the sequels are. Maybe. I think it might be.
Hang on, I'm checking quickly.
Okay.
Could be. I'm sure I saw something about it recently. No, it doesn't look like it is. But that would be a good release.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the most infamous Cat 3s, isn't it, in the West in general? So I would figure it's a no-brainer release, really, provided they can get the rights to it, obviously.
Yeah, and I've got a funny feeling they might go for Dr. Lamb, because Unearthed are releasing it in the States, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Yeah. And they're doing Tokyo Decadence as well, which kind of annoyed me because I only recently picked up the German Blu-ray, and then I found out that the proper English one's coming out. It's like, oh.
I've got a DVD and I'll stick with it.
Yeah, well, you like your DVD quality.
Oh, I certainly do.
Yeah, and also, I'm looking forward to a few things that Media Blasters are going to be coming out with. There's one project that I can't talk about at the moment, but it's Miike related. And the other is the Kamen Rider film, 90s film collection, 90s, early 2000s film collection they're going to be putting out, which would be the first time for the West, I believe. So that's interesting. Because as you know, we talked off stream, I've started watching some tokusatsu and Sentai and stuff like that. So, yeah.
You madman.
You know what? If you'd have said to me 5 years ago, hey, Fox, you're going to sit down and watch Super Sentai Jetman, how do you feel about that? I would be like, no. But it happened and I enjoyed it. So I will be checking out more. Yeah, exactly. This is the thing about the show, by the way. We will be covering mostly older stuff because that's kind of what I do. My niche sits in there. And we'll be talking about new releases of old stuff primarily, and some newer films, of course, but mostly, again, sort of in that older, maybe more forgotten eras of Hong Kong and Japan outside of the hardcore or natives themselves who might know those films. Because while it's great that, East Asian cinema is definitely at its peak right now, I would say, on a general sense, in terms of between Netflix, Disney Plus, and everything, that's great. But I kind of have found, as all of these new series have been coming out and content, a lot of the older stuff seems to be sort of forgotten, outside of the big classics, Hard Boiled and all of that. But yeah, speaking of, I'm also looking forward to that Anita film, the director's cut for Disney Plus. I'm looking forward to checking that out. So yeah, there's quite a few things I'm looking forward to this year, to be honest. Again, it's all old, but and I might check out that Midnight Korean one at some point.
That's a good film. That is very divisive, but I liked it a lot.
Right. Okay. Cool.
I'd like to talk about that one, actually. I think we could have a good chat about that.
Yeah. I don't know. The problem I've got with it is every single time I talk about what's his face, I'd have to be like Squid Game.
Squid Game.
From Squid Game.
Appearance in Squid Game.
Yes. All caps,
no,
sticker on the box. No offense, Eureka. We love you. You're doing God's work. Please give me the big heat on Blu-ray. Please just do it. Just find it. Find a print, clean it up, get it out.
Yeah. If I can request some older Japanese films, that would be lovely, please.
Basically, Nathan's wish is he wants the entire 60s and 70s Toei library officially translated, cleaned up, and released in West.
Don't even have to clean it. I'll take it dirty. As long as I've got it.
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? When you grow up on VHS bootlegs and fan subs and all kinds of weird and wonderful things that we will be talking about.
Speaking of new releases, there's a rumor. I don't know if we're okay to talk about rumors.
Depends on the rumor.
There might be a box set of Abashiri Prison coming from Arrow.
I am not certain because I have no clue what Arrow are doing right now. Like, I really, really don't. I mean, that would be cool. I'd certainly like that. I want more Yakuza films from them as well. But I was really impressed with their release of Sailor Suit, to be honest. That was great.
It is a good release.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of confused with what Arrow's doing when it comes to foreign film at the moment. And I say that with all due respect to them. Because I've noticed that the output for Japanese stuff seems to have petered off a little bit. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Certainly will.
Obviously, shout out to our friend Jasper, who does great work over there for retrospectives, and he does all the essays, doesn't he, on a lot of pieces. Mr. Sharp.
Yeah, most of them, I think, does some commentaries as well, and
yeah, no, he did a great job. Like I said, the most recent one I bought and seen is Sailor Suit, which is one of my favorite films. So that was really well done, I thought, especially the historical importance of it and all of that sort of good stuff.
And shout out to Midnight Eye for being the best Japanese film site there ever was.
Oh God, Midnight Eye. I haven't heard that brought up in ages. So what have you been watching this week? Sort of just recently?
Not a great deal. I've sort of scaled back a little bit this year, sort of trying to go for quality over quantity.
Yeah, so no V-Cine binges then?
Oh, that'll happen. That just comes naturally.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be done at least once a year.
Exactly. It's unavoidable. But I've started digging into Taiketo a lot, which is a filmmaker that I've sat on for many, many, many years, holding him back as a rainy day director.
Right.
Purely because, when you think, not that you think, something's going to work for you.
Yeah, that's basically me all the time. I don't buy something unless I'm quite picky about that, as you know. So
he's so sort of critically acclaimed, a contemporary peer of sort of Kinji Fukasaku and directors like that. So I've just sat on it and sat on it and sat on this filmography and finally dove in and blown away. Absolutely blown away.
Cool. Any standouts?
I haven't dropped below sort of a 4-star film of his yet, to be quite honest.
Yeah, but is there any that like really stood out to you? Anything in particular? Any films in particular?
Cruel Story of the Shogunate's Downfall from 1964.
Right. I think I've actually heard of that one. I haven't seen it, but the title sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's something. It really is. And I mean, for 1964, it's shockingly violent as well, which really took me aback.
Is that a Toei film or is it Nikatsu or who did that one?
No, Cruel Story is Toei.
Toei, right.
I think. Don't quote me on that, but 90% sure.
90%.
But no, I mean, it's just about a young Ronin who applies to join the Shinsengumi. I think that's how you say it.
Yes, that is correct. The Shinsengumi, the last wolves of Nibu.
Yep, that's it.
It was a real thing.
It's the kind of sort of military police, aren't they? Sort of.
Yeah, kind of. Well, kind of, but they went rogue. There's a whole history with the Shinsengumi and stuff. We'll get into that at some point. But yeah, no, it was genuinely a real thing that existed.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, it's a hell of a film. I mean, this young Ronin applies to join, and he seems like a real idiot at first. The sort of first 5-10 minutes sets him up as this bumbling idiot who goes into the dojo and vomits at all the blood and stuff that he sees, but the film gradually changes, and it's very, very critical of the moral code and the Shinsengumi itself, the emperor, the shogunate itself, to be quite honest. And it's a hell of a film. Well, it really is. I cannot recommend it enough.
Here's an interesting tidbit for you. I'm not sure if you know this. I know some of our listeners will. You know, Bushido didn't actually exist during the time of the samurai.
Yep.
Yeah. So a lot of people don't know that, who were just into general samurai thing. But yeah, that's something which came about later in the whole era, Sengoku era and stuff. which is why you hear a lot of critical people who are critical of samurai culture and stuff. They call it like a romanticized version of things. I mean, it makes for great stories and great films. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't trade it in at all.
Oh no.
But yeah, obviously you do get some critics out there like, well, Bushido wasn't a thing, so where?
Yeah, and I think that's the sort of spirit behind this as well. Is he's very, very critical of it.
Right. No, that's cool though. I like it when films do that to a degree. Because I mean, I just watched recently. What was it? The Last Sword is Drawn, which obviously is newer. It's newer than the area you're talking about, but it kind of still went into a bit of what it meant to be a samurai. And, again, it was all romanticized. It was a beautiful film, really beautiful film.
Yeah,
very well done. What else have I been watching? Lots of Yakuza stuff.
Beautiful.
Lots of Yakuza stuff. I mean, I think the standouts for me have been the that third Gangster series or third Yakuza, depending on what angle of the translation you fall on. But that was really good. Do you know, has the first one been subbed?
No.
I'm so gutted because I at least wanted to see the first three, because I was sitting there watching the second one, which is called New Third Gangster. If anyone who's following along wants to look it up, it's Miike film, I think. Is it Miike? Yeah, it's Miike. And basically, there's flashbacks to the first film, which was called Third Gangster. So they did that classic Japanese thing where it was like the first film was just called Third Gangster, and then the second film was called Shin Third Gangster, as in New Third Gangster. So it's that typical Japanese naming convention. But the thing is about New is it's doing all these flashbacks to the first one, because it follows along in series. So I was sort of watching all these flashbacks and I was a bit confused as to what was going on at first, because I'm like, is this a storytelling device or has there been another film? Because obviously when I found it, it was only just called Third Gangster. So, and then when I actually went looking it up, it's like, oh, it's part of a series. I see. But it was kind of confusing at first. But it's unfortunate because I would have liked to at least seen the first three, because they're quite good, even though there's loads of them. But the first 12. Yeah, that's a lot. But
12, yeah, something like that.
No, I still really like it.
Yeah, those two that you watched, they're generally just considered two on their own, especially in this part of the world.
Right. Well, to me, the first one ties into it based on the flashbacks. And because, so on the synopsis I read, the first one sets up these two. So to me, not having the first one kind of takes away from the overall story. It's not essential, but you can still kind of tell if you're paying attention, you're missing some bits.
Yeah. No, I'm with you.
I mean, I totally get what you're saying, because that sort of thing happens all the time when stuff comes over, especially if it's not official or anything. But yeah, I that's why I said I would like to have been able to see the first one at least, so I could call it a trilogy. But no, I really, really did like it. Aesthetically, it was great. Still had some Miike hallmarks, but quite toned down, which I personally prefer. Which, as more people listen to the show and see my videos, they'll understand. I'm not big on typical Miike as most people know him in the West, i.e., crazy, hardcore, Dead or Alive, Itchy the Killer. Those are great films. I still enjoy them, don't get me wrong, but I much prefer his, I guess, more balanced work would be the way to describe it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, where I stand on Miike. I'm probably my favorite director, and I take quite a hard stance on him. So
yeah, I mean, again, I've seen when I looked over Letterboxd, even though I haven't added the films yet, I've seen probably about 30, 40 of his films. So I'm no Miike expert compared to many, but it's just like, I've just noticed that in terms of his catalog, out of what I have seen, I tend to prefer when he's a bit more reined in, when he's not just going completely out there for the entire film. because like I still love Deadly Outlaw Wrecker, which obviously we will talk about at some point. You know, that I still love that film. You know, and Fudo is a favorite of mine. What else? I liked Audition. You know, obviously everyone likes Audition, but it's like, you know, when I think of Miike, I think of those films before I think of Itchy, for example.
Yeah, totally. Same here, to be honest.
You know, and there's others I wanted to check out, which I can't remember off the top of my head right now. But yeah, I mean, his filmography is just so vast. I mean, is he Japan's hardest working director?
Probably.
Because I know he puts out films at a rate knots and he's still going. So.
Yeah, I mean, talking in modern terms, yeah, I'd say definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, so anyone who's just a general Miike fan, by the way, I do recommend, if you've only seen his newest stuff, which would be, what year would new Miike be classed, like 98, 99?
Yeah.
If you've only...
sort of post-2000 maybe, a little bit.
Yeah, if you've only seen his like really extreme stuff, I do recommend kind of going back through his catalogue if you can. Because it's just... It's a bit different, but he tells better stories, in my opinion. This is just my opinion. I think he tells better stories overall when you look at his films in sense of groups. So when you look at, you know, if you were to batch films of his from, I don't know, like 99 through 2005 or something, and then you batch films of his from like 92, 93 to 97 or whatever, you know, with nitpicking, you could pick individual films from each era and be like, oh well, this is good anyway, you know, this is more balanced. You could certainly do that because he's just got so much out there. But I definitely think that, for me, I do think anyone who's a fan of his owes it to themselves to go back and check some of his earlier work if you have not seen it. Agreed. Especially Fudo was his introduction in the West for a lot of people when that came out back in the day. So, you know, because I think that got a theatrical release in some areas in the US. Can't remember.
Yeah, I think it did. And it, excuse me, it definitely got festival showings.
Yeah. I think it was his first film to get festival showings. Okay. Not 100% on that anyway. But yeah, no, I've just been on a bit of a Yakuza kick, V-Cine kick, watching some Toei stuff from the 80s and 90s. So, because as people will understand, people who know me outside of the show know that I watch a bit of everything. I don't know how best to word it. Maybe Nathan would be able to word it better than I can, but I'll watch everything from Pinku Cinema to Cat 3 to V-Cine to low budget B movie, all the way through to Tokusatsu, Sentai, Kurosawa, One Kar Wai level things. I'm a bit all over the map with what I watch. Eclectic, yes. Do you know, I've never really liked that term. To me, it sounds pretentious. I know that's not what it means. You know, I do know my English, but I think it's because of just how people use it, because sometimes people are like, oh, I'm eclectic. I have eclectic taste. It's like,
oh no, I totally see where you're coming from.
Yeah. But yeah, no, in truth, yes, my taste is quite eclectic. Which hopefully, you know, through showcasing some things with the show and the channel, will show you guys things you've never seen before. Maybe give you a chance to go and pick something up or have a look at something new. You know, that's my hope anyway. I'm certainly not here to ram films down anyone's throat. You know, you won't see me up there saying Wong Kar-wai is the best film director ever who defined Hong Kong cinema.
Whereas I'm completely the opposite.
Yeah.
I'm stuck in my ways. I like what I like.
Yeah, which is, again, there's nothing wrong with.
And I'm more than willing to ram Deadly Outlaw Record down everyone's throat that I possibly can.
Yeah. Excuse me, I'm going to have to edit that cough out. Oh, damn. Yes, well, we will be talking about Rekka in the future, so, which is a great film. I highly recommend that to anybody. If you can only see one Riki Takeuchi film in your life, Rekka's the one to watch.
But you should absolutely watch more than one.
Yes, yes, you should. You're doing yourself
That's
a
another one that
disservice.
Sorry, keep going.
No, just saying you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't.
Yeah. And just, I was just going to say on the subject of Ricky, I think you would really like Yakuza Demon.
Yeah, so that DVD has been on my list for a while, but it is very expensive at the moment. So I have never picked it up. But I'm sorry, guys. I know this tangent's running off a bit longer, but we will get to the actual shows in a minute that we were going to talk about. But isn't Yakuza Demon supposed? I read somewhere that it's considered a sequel to Rekka, sort of, but not really, because it's not actually a sequel. But in some parts of the world, it's considered to be a sequel.
I've seen that before. I've seen people mention that before, and I disagree with it totally.
Right, I trust you on that, but yeah, no, it's
honest.
one that's been on my list for. It's been on my list since before Rekka was on my list, actually.
Yeah, because there's only a US release.
Yeah, and it is really expensive because it's Miike.
Yeah, I paid so little for it back in the day.
Yeah, don't remind me. Yeah, I think last time I checked, it was going for about £80.
Jesus.
Yeah, so who knows? Maybe I'll get to see it someday. I wish all of these films would get Blu-ray releases, but the reality is it's probably never going to happen, apart from the ones that are really big and were really successful.
Agreed. Although I think if you'd have asked me 10 years ago, when people were saying, "Oh, we want more Miike," I would have said it's probably a bad idea, purely because I think a lot of his 90s stuff doesn't have wide appeal.
No, I mean, to be fair, I can see that too, because it's like watching New Third Gangster. You know, that is a very Japanese Yakuza film. It's not hardcore Toei Yakuza, but it's very, if you don't understand Yakuza culture, their structure, the general setup of Japan at the time, in terms of from a socio-economical standpoint, you probably, a lot of stuff will probably go over your head.
Agreed.
And it's also just the style it's made in, because it's a bit slower. You know, it's not again balls to the wall crazy music video style Miike film. You know, I don't really know how to describe that style of filmmaking, because it's very unique to him, but it doesn't have that frenetic energy to it. It very much is more atmospheric, would be the best way I could describe it.
Yeah, whereas I think something like Man in White would definitely have more appeal to a more general audience on this side of the world. So I know you're going to be watching those soon, aren't you?
Yes. Well, I'm trying to go through some of the Miike stuff I haven't seen. So yeah, because I was quite surprised when I looked over the letterbox thing how many of his films I'd actually seen, even though again I haven't added them. Because the thing with my letterbox, by the way, if anyone's listening who actually follows that, is I'm only adding films as I review them. So I added a batch when I made it a couple of months ago just to have some stuff on there, but once I got to a certain point, I was like, no, do you know what? I'm just going to add films as I rewatch or do a first time watch. So there's a lot of films I have seen that aren't on there yet, but they will eventually get on there. But yeah, no, I was quite surprised at that. So, but again, I'm enjoying it. You know, it's a good kick to be on. I'll probably jump back to Hong Kong in March. I don't know what February is going to be for me as far as general watchings go, because I know I tend to go more feudal Japan, more Yakuza around that time. So we'll see. We'll see. I mean,
all Yakuza all the time.
All you can, all the time. Yeah, yeah. I was very tempted. I was very, very tempted to line the channel up to be more Yakuza orientated because of the association with it and everything. But yeah, no, we will cover everything, I promise. Just maybe not the most popular things. Well, actually, I can say that with certainty. Not the most popular things. That's not why we exist. There's plenty of channels. Basically, my thing is there's plenty of channels out there and plenty of podcasts that will cover all of those things a million times better than I ever could. So they can have that. Go check them out. I'm just in my own little weird corner of the world, eating my rice, watching my film. Okay.
Same here. Exactly.
Yeah, and Korean barbecue sauce for you, right?
Damn straight.
Yeah.
I can't live without Korean barbecue sauce.
Cool. Yeah. So Korean is the area of film I'm probably the weakest on. If I had to pick between my three regions. So there will be some Korean stuff in here, but it won't be as strong as people might expect, because most of my Korean experience was is it officially called the New Wave? I think it's called the New Wave stuff from late 90s through. That was basically a lot of my experience.
People like to call it the Hallyu wave as well nowadays, don't they?
Yeah, I think that's the new way. That's the current wave. I think like post 2010 or post 2015, somewhere in there. I don't know. Again, I'm no expert on this. Yeah, I'm no expert on this. But apparently there was a motion in Korean government to focus on export of media and entertainment, Korean media and entertainment, kind of like the Cool Japan thing that was brought in over in Japan years ago. So yeah, but don't worry, Korean fans, we will get to some films. The Valentine's episode will have My Sassy Girl, which will be my first time watching that, so I'm looking forward to talking about that. So
yeah, and just to before we carry on, just to bounce off of Fox's point there a little bit. For me, Hong Kong is not my strong point, so please bear with me when it comes to discussing Hong Kong, and add that into the fact that this is my first time podcasting as well. Please go gentle.
Yeah, don't worry. Yes, be gentle with him. I've promised he can keep his pinky for at least 3 episodes, but if there's any more screw-ups after that, it's time to get the knife out. Sorry.
You can have the first knuckle, that's fine.
Now, I mean, I've done this before, so anything. But no, Nathan, I've known him for a while. He has a lot of good things to say about film. I know through talking with me, he's gotten more interested in Hong Kong film again. From what I can tell, he's been enjoying what he's been watching. So I know part of why he wanted to do this podcast with me is to watch more Hong Kong stuff as well, and find more things. So, while he will admit that it's his weakest area, he's certainly not unfamiliar with Asian cinema enough that it would be too foreign to him to watch. So
no, I mean, I've seen all the Hong Kong basics, as it were, and I've deep dived some Cat 3 filth in my time. but my heart lies with Japan, as you know. So
yeah, I mean, obviously for me, because I moved around a bit, it's like I started when I was very young. I started with Hong Kong because of the export scene here.
Yeah.
And then I sort of started to get Japan around the same time, but I didn't get into Japan properly until I moved to the US, because when I was in the US, the Japan stuff was more easily available. So yeah, that's just a bit of history on both of us. Sorry, I didn't want to go too far on a tangent there, but it's kind of like one of those, why should you listen to this cast? Well, I don't know. Why should you? Why are you here? Oh, for the rice. Okay, yeah, that's fine. But yeah, so again, this is new. As we go along, the format will change. It'll tweak. We'll get things together. It'll become more, probably flow better, because again, this is our first one. So do bear with us on any awkwardness or, maybe just fumbling of explanations, because we're sort of trying to figure out what the best format is for both of us to talk with, and then I'll have other guests on and there'll be things. So yeah, this is a moving experiment. It's be like water, formless and shapeless.
Exactly.
So to quote a certain infamous Asian American, that
I have no idea who you're talking about.
it's some guy, Jackie Chan, I think.
Oh really? Conan Lee?
Yeah, Conan Lee, yeah, Jackie Chan 2.0, who we'll be talking about in a bit. I guess we should get into the film slate for this episode, which, to be honest, we don't have as much to talk about as we normally would across the three. The first film we're going to be talking about today, obviously, is Heroic Trio, which is a New Year film from 1993. Johnny To, Anita Mui, Michelle Yeoh, and of course Maggie Chung.
I must apologise in advance as well. If I mispronounce any names, I do apologise.
Don't worry, there will be Yobatsumi. If anyone is offended, Yobatsumi will occur. Nathan doesn't need his pinky. No,
Right,
just kidding.
No,
we do our best. We both will do our best. Was this like your second time watching it?
Yes.
Officially?
Officially, yeah. I saw it many moons ago when Hong Kong Legends brought out the DVD, but
yeah, well, that wasn't even an official wide release, was it? Because it was magazine only. So
yeah, on the front of the magazine, yeah, that's right.
Because when I first got it, I got it on a bootleg VHS down the market.
As you do.
Excuse me. Yeah. 90s were different time, kids. No streaming services. Just some dodgy guy on the corner who was like, yeah, this VHS £1. Okay. There's 3 cool looking chicks on it. All right. Yeah. Me as a 5-year-old.
What can you ask for?
Yeah. Exactly. Look kind of like Batman. Like, yes, please. So yeah, I have seen this film so many times, especially in the recent months, because I've shown it to friends who've never seen it before. And the best way I could describe it is absolutely, it is bonkers, but not bonkers because it's crazy. It just is. It knows what it is, and it doesn't hold back. It is an action fantasy film that just kind of really goes for it for the time, between all the special effects, the lighting, the wire work. You know, it really, the 3 leading ladies just really cane it as best they can. You know, again, I don't think Michelle Yeoh gets to showcase as much because she's outshined by Moy and Maggie. But, you know, she really, all of them do a fantastic job. And I mean, this film, for a lot of people, there is a generation of people where this film made those actresses' careers for them, even though it wasn't necessarily their debuts or anything like that. Especially in the West, you know, there was a lot of exposure to these characters for the first time through that film. So, you know, and it's just, I mean, where to even start? I mean, you could start with the plot because you've got a plot summary, right?
I have not, no.
Well, you did in your notes. Didn't you say like...
Not as in a synopsis, no.
Right. So general gist of it is there's an evil emperor who is stealing babies to create an heir.
18 of them.
18 of them. Yeah. This is heavily, yeah, Nathan counted. This is heavily based in Chinese mythology. I don't know exactly where it comes from. I'm not super expert on this, but I know there's a lot of elements of this film that are based in Chinese mythology. So basically the premise is they need 18 babies to create like an heir for the emperor to rule China. That's the basic premise. Michelle, spoilers, because we are spoiling. Michelle Yeoh's character is the Invisible Woman, and she's stealing these babies, taking them back to the emperor because she's in servitude to the emperor. So yeah, that's the general thing. But the police don't know what's going on. They think it's a ghost story. They're kind of all over the place. So yeah, that's the general gist of it. I mean, I know that's a really short version, but yeah, it's just kind of, it's all action and it's all the time. It's great. You know, it's a good, as I said in my Letterboxd review, it's a good Friday night film to stick on. You know, especially if Hong Kong action's your thing. I mean, was there anything in particular that stood out to you, Nathan?
Yes and no. I do like, I mean, like I said to you off air, it's been a while since I've seen this, and I have this weird relationship with this film in that I respect it and I recommend it very highly. But on this rewatch, I didn't connect with it as much as I wanted to, and I didn't enjoy it as much as I wanted to. I think that's sort of coloured my vision on it a little bit. But I did like the action a lot. And that's something I don't usually go for wire work. It tends to be a big put off for me.
Same. It's got to be done in a very specific way. At least when it comes to Hong Kong. So, like, what I mean by that is, like, I can watch The Matrix's wire work all day, right? Outside of the new film, because that was Hong Kong inspired, but the way it was done was just masterful. Okay. But then you've got like wuxia style films, which we will get into at some point. I'm not a big wuxia fan.
Me neither.
I can't get on with the genre. I respect the genre. I understand what it is, but I just, especially some of those older films with the way they do the wire work and the editing and the cutting away, and you can't really see anything because it's all just fly and weapons hitting each other off screen and things. Something I have always appreciated and loved about Hong Kong cinema is that you can see the action.
Yeah.
They show you it. There's no shaky cam. There's tricks in editing, don't get me wrong, but it's not like tricks as in cut away so you don't see. It's not like the ending of the fight is inferred with a cutaway.
No.
Unless it's done for dramatic effect. So, when it comes to a lot of wuxia wire worky stuff, yeah, I'm the same because it's just too much. Funnily enough, I actually just had a discussion with one of my friends from Hong Kong about that just before, because we were talking about the Rurouni Kenshin films. Because the action director on that, I believe, if memory serves, is someone who also was partially action director on Raging Fire, which we'll be talking about later, but he's Donnie Yen's protege. So yeah, he did the action sequences for Rurouni, and they mentioned to me about there's some wire work in there, which makes
a lot of sense actually.
Which makes it stand out. But I haven't seen those films yet, and I am intentionally putting them off, and I will get a lot of hate for this, and I don't care. That anime to me is a classic. It is a childhood favorite, so I have to be in a very specific frame of mind before I watch any live action adaptation of that.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
And it's not because I think the films will be terrible. It's just, for me, there's a very, very high bar. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think for me as well, not to go off on a tangent, but I've seen only the first one and I did not like it.
Yeah, like I said, I have a heavy bias with Kenshin. But the weird thing is, right, for me on live action anime adaptations, just to put a bow on this quickly, I like a lot of different ones that kind of stand alone as their own films. Like they know what they are and they just embrace it and they just do their own thing. And I like those films. But I'm weary of Kenshin. There's something about all the trailers I've seen, the discussions I've seen about it that make me, as someone who grew up with the anime, read some of the manga, it was one of my favorite anime of all time as a kid. So it's like there's a heavy expectation and bias there that I know is going to color my view of those films. So, and also I'm waiting for them to get a physical release collection in the West if they ever do, because I know they've gotten a collection in Japan at the moment and they're on streaming services. So we'll see. I will check them out eventually. I'm just kind of like, yeah.
Yeah, no, I get that, and I do think it ties in slightly because in some ways this feels like a heroic. To go back to Heroic Trio, this feels like a live action adaptation of something.
Yeah, even though it's not.
Even though it's not.
Yeah, because I remember you asked me about that, and I was like thinking about it, and it's like, to my knowledge, when I did all my research on it and stuff, it's not. I mean, I do think it's Batman inspired. I do think it's got a lot of that Tim Burton Batman feel to it. I think that's had an impact on Johnny To's style here. And obviously, again, there's a lot of Chinese mythos implemented into it. So I think if you were to do a study and you knew, maybe you could pick somewhere in some Chinese legend or something, archetypes, perhaps. Again, I don't know this, and probably I might be completely wrong, but my hunch is that you could probably look back and find some character somewhere that is like a framework that was based off of. It's a bit like how you can say that, Luke Skywalker is Jesus Christ in Star Wars. So,
Yeah.
it's like when you study it from an academia point of view in the hero's journey, you could pick that and make that parallel. So there might be some parallels somewhere regarding these characters where you could say like, yeah, okay, this is based off of this character in ancient history or whatever. But again, I'm no scholar on Chinese history, so I wouldn't know for sure. It's definitely not a direct adaptation of anything, that's for sure. So yeah, speaking of references, actually, I just remembered. Did you catch the Terminator reference at the end with the skeleton?
I mean, I saw it, but I didn't make the reference until you've just. I didn't connect the dots till you just said it, to be honest. But it's definitely there.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair too, that stop motion sequence is really well done. Like it's also equally kind of the most ridiculous thing that happens in the film. Basically, so we are spoiling everything on this podcast, by the way. I mean, we're not going into super detail on the plots of everything because we do want to leave some things out. However, the ending of this film is just like it's so bonkers in a way you wouldn't expect, but it works within the rules of the universe that it sets up. Basically, this entity, the emperor entity that's trying to make the new baby emperor a thing, possesses tries to possess different bodies, and it possesses this like skeleton thing, which then tries to it's like its true form, and then it tries to take over one of the women. Like it tries to kind of like a face hugger does,
I
but
was
it's
just
like
about to say that. Yeah.
yeah, but it's like the skeleton does. And then there's this whole fight sequence with the characters and this skeleton. And keep in mind, this is all back in the day. I mean, this was what, 93, somewhere in there? Yeah, and it's like the special effects were really good. I mean, it's
It was
believable in the most bonkers way. I mean, the face looks like something out of Mars Attacks, but it's still like just the fight sequence is just phenomenal, considering
it's
they're
really
fighting
well
like a
done.
puppet. Yeah,
Really well done. And I swear, I mean, I know skeletons are pretty general, but I swear I've seen that skeleton used in another Hong Kong film.
yeah, it's
I,
possible. I mean, there's a lot of reuse
I just can't think
in
of
that
what it
era.
was. I vividly remember this stop motion sequence of a skeleton kicking this guy in the balls. And I want to say it's a Chow Yun Fat film.
It's not Seventh Curse.
It's not.
It's not,
Okay. I'm
and
wondering what it could be then.
I don't think it was the other one, Witch from Nepal.
No, because I haven't watched that yet.
Um,
But I've actually, I mean, this is how long ago I watched it. I actually made a GIF of it, or a GIF, however you say it.
yeah, it's Jiff.
So I will send, I'll send you that later, and perhaps you'll be able to tell me where it's from, because I cannot for the life of me remember what film it is.
Okay, yeah, maybe if I see it, I'll know. I mean, we'll see. The thing is, for me, is a lot of the Hong Kong stuff up until recently when I started rebuilding my collection. A lot of it I saw back in the 90s, early 90s and stuff. So there's things that I like remember that aren't as clear. But then when I see them, it's like, oh, yeah, I actually had this film on my shelf. I
Yeah.
remember this now. Because again, it was like there was some official releases, but there was a lot of bootleg in Chinatown. There was a lot of bootleg blank tapes and, artificial artwork and all of that kind of fun stuff. So they were just basically copies of the Hong Kong releases that had English subs on them. That's why there's a lot I can remember and there's a lot I can't.
No, I
Probably like
totally
you
get
with
that.
70s Toei. Probably pull something random out of 70s Toei and you'll be like, yeah,
I
I've seen that, but I can't.
I have to check my notes,
Yeah.
because I went through, obviously there's standout films that I can pick out, no problem whatsoever. But there's certainly a lot as well that blend into one, and I'll have to sit back and think, actually, what was that?
Yeah. No,
So I
exactly.
totally get where you're coming from.
Yeah. No, it just takes a while. But yeah, we both don't have too much to say about Heroic Trio apart from genuinely it's a classic. It's classic Johnny Toe. It's a forgotten Johnny Toe film by a lot of standards for a lot of people who only know him for his sort of crime, I guess. Because Nathan, you explained this to me the other week, didn't you? Because I know, because that was my first Johnny To film, and I loved it. And I know that for a lot of people around that time that were into Hong Kong cinema, they that was their first Johnny To. So for a lot of people, it was a gateway film into his work. But nowadays, that doesn't seem to be the case amongst younger generations. Am I right in that? It's like people think about.
I'd certainly say it's the crime stuff nowadays.
Yeah, like Election and what's the other one?
Vengeance, drug war.
Yeah. No, there was like another late 90s one he did that everyone talks about. I'm trying to remember what it was.
Oh, good question.
And there was the 2000 one. Was Breaking News Johnny To?
Oh, that's a great film. Yes, that was because we got that from Tartan over here, didn't we?
Yeah, I've still got that DVD. I still need to watch it. I keep saying I'm going to, and I don't. But yeah, no, I definitely Johnny To is another director that I seriously, his body of work is amazing. So I do recommend anyone who likes him, you owe it to yourself to go back and check his earlier work, because it's even in his earliest stuff where he's doing collaborations, there's still elements of his style in there, and it's interesting to watch it and see his style sort of grow. Because I mean, Heroic Trio was like his first film where he just went balls to the wall action, full on Johnny To. Like that was his goal with that movie. He just wanted to make a blockbuster, fun action movie, no holds barred, go for it, which he succeeded in.
He
But
did, yeah.
if you watch like The Big Heat and other films of his, you know, you can see elements of his visual style, the cinematography, the way he does his storytelling. You can see it start to build to what it would become later on. But I would argue that it's better in a way, because it's kind of it's like a mishmash of really classic Hong Kong with Johnny To. So it's kind of, I don't know, it's just got a vibe to it that kind of, it's a different vibe, you know, than the modern Johnny To films. Like it's a different thematic signature that's there, to get picky.
Yeah. And I think as well, isn't there an umbrella scene in this, which is a bit of a To trademark, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think that's with Wonder Woman, I think.
That's right. That's right. And I think, like you said, with the atmosphere and the lighting and everything, you can definitely see and I'm saying this as a huge fan of his crime films. That's basically all I've explored. So it's going to be good to sort of go back and explore some of To's other stuff.
Yeah, whereas I don't know a lot of To's later crime films, to be honest. I haven't seen most of them. I think one of the newest To's I've seen that sticks out in my mind was Throwdown, which is a masterpiece. So I'm sure we'll talk about that someday. But I mean, I haven't seen Drug War yet. I haven't seen Election 1 and 2. They're in my pile. I have them, and I will get to them. But yeah, like I said, for me, it's like my left eye only sees ghosts, The Big Heat, Heroic Trio, and there's a few others that he did in the 90s that I can't think of off the top of my head that stick out in my mind. So I think he did a couple of comedies as well.
I think he's done quite a few comedies, hasn't he? I haven't seen them, but I've certainly heard talk of them.
It's a great film. Definitely check it out. It's just fun. It's a fun actioner. Moy steals the show. Maggie Chung's, a lot of her character in this is infamous. You know, and Michelle Yeoh does a great job as well, don't get me wrong, but her presence isn't as strongly felt as, say, like a Yes Madam or Royal Warriors, where she's really center stage. This is, you know, the ensemble works together and they just do an excellent job. I mean, all of them. But again, Moy, to my mind, Moy and Maggie steal the show on this.
Absolutely.
You know what's next, right?
Very sorry, sir. Maybe. Now this is a classic.
Oh yeah. All right. Tiger on the Beat, 1988. Chow Yun-fat, Conan Lee, directed by Lau Kar Long. I think I said his name right. I think I said it wrong actually, but my apologies. Right. Yeah. So buddy cop action comedy, kind of.
And again, starts with a banging soundtrack.
Oh, hell yeah. Let me pull up my notes for this one. Let me see. What do I have here? I forgot to note the name of the singer. Oops. My bad.
I didn't even look it up, to be honest.
Yeah. No, but she did stuff for City on Fire and other films around the time as well. But yeah, my thing about this film, okay, we will get into details in a minute, but my thing about this film is if I wanted to pick one film that summed up 1980s Hong Kong, this would be the film. If I wanted to give someone a clear picture of 1980s Hong Kong cinema, I would show them this, just as a general, because it just encapsulates everything in this really neat package, from the loud clothing, the 80s style soundtrack, some of the action sequences, the excess, the humor, the comedy, everything that's involved, the personalities of the characters and the archetypes, and who's in the film as well. Because there's a lot of people in here, from Tilung, you've got Conan Lee, you've got Nina Lee. There's all kinds of like little cameos from others who were who's who of Shaw Brothers cinema and Hong Kong cinema at the time. I mean, it just, yeah, this to me is like a time capsule for that era, the later 80s era of Hong Kong.
And it's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, it's just where to start with this film. I suppose I will start with the red flag. This film does feature some violence against women. No one condones it. Chow Yun-fat actually said of the particular scene where he beats the crap out of Nina Lee, and I don't know how else to explain it because that's what he does.
That's
he
exactly
said
what my notes say.
He says he doesn't. He said he did not like filming that scene, and he was averse to it, and he tried to fight the producers on it. But the thing is, and this is something I think Westerners, where it doesn't land with Westerners, is Nina Lee at the time was apparently very, very hated by Hong Kong audiences. Because she offended them during some beauty pageant or something, because her persona came across as quite arrogant. So she rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. So the producer's line of thinking with her being in this film was the audiences will love it because we'll give her what they think she deserves, right?
Wow, okay.
So, and to be fair, some other of her other roles that she was cast in at the time, she was kind of the butt end of the joke. So she sort of embraced that side of her persona and, kind of came in there. Obviously, again, Chow thought it was a bit extreme, but that was the reasoning behind it. And to be fair to Nina, she did end up marrying Jet Li. So.
Did she really?
Yes, she's his wife.
Still to this day?
Check wiki. I think so.
Okay. Wow. I wasn't expecting that.
I think she was his second wife.
I mean, and in all fairness as well.
Second wife.
Sorry, what was that?
She's his second wife and they're still together. Yes.
Wow, okay. Very interesting.
And I mean, she did have a good career. So,
I mean, from my perspective, the scene's rough.
Yeah, I mean, it's rough. I mean, there's no way you can justify it, all right? Like, there's just no way you can. But the premise of it is she starts attacking, for those who've not seen it, she starts attacking Chow Yun-fat's character, Francis Lee, and he retaliates, basically. And I think part of the idea behind it was knocking sense into her, because she's just, at that point, she's going down a path smuggling drugs and things because she's duped into it by her brother.
Just hysterical.
And she's hysterical. So she just goes for him. And yeah, again, it's over the top, and I understand it'd be a bit difficult to watch if it's not something you're expecting or you're averse to that thing. So don't worry about it. But it is meant to be done. This is going to sound so weird. It's meant to be done in a tongue-in-cheek way for the audience at the time. Mm-hmm. So again, you have to think local humor here, because there's a lot of jokes, a lot of in-jokes amongst Hong Kong cinema and Hong Kong culture. In particular, there's one scene where they're in the same mall that Police Story was shot in, I've forgotten the name of it, but they shot it in the same mall, and they're in the department store because basically they're tailing Nina Lee's character. This is genuinely hilarious. But so they're tailing Nina Lee's character, and they go into a women's department, and they end up in the bra and panties section because, of course, they do. And she goes over to the clerk and says that she's being trailed by two perverts. Now, these two guys are cops. They're trailing her because they're trying to find out where she's taking drug money that she's just received. And over comes the retail clerk, and she stops Chow Yun Fat and is like, "Why are you here?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm shopping for a bra for my wife." And, she's then like, "Well, how big is she?" And he's like, he's fumbling around trying to think. And then she starts naming these different Hong Kong actresses and idols at the time, pop singers and stuff, canto pop stars. And she goes through three of them. And I forget the exact names, but I know one of them's Anita Moy. And the whole thing about the Anita Moy joke is her breasts change size.
I was going to ask you about this.
They appear to. Whereas the other two are actresses he's worked with, and one of them is quite busty. I think the first one is quite busty, and then the second one, she's quite flat-chested. So it's kind of like, this is the type of humor that's interwoven in here. And, it's kind of like, these are known actresses at the time and pop stars. So it was all like, oh, yeah, ha, 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 so-and-so, so-and-so, so again, it's just fun. I mean, my whole thing with this film is like, don't take it seriously. Just take it for what it is, which is just a crazy action comedy that is over the top in all the right places.
Because they return to that joke as well, don't they?
Yeah, they do later on, which is quite amusing. But yeah, so that was the actual reason for Nina Lee's character receiving poor treatment. So now we've got that out the way, because I did want to talk about that. This film, for some reason, is forgotten. And I think I know why. I think it's because of the humor, because it's not typical Jackie Chan humor. It's not typical Western humor. It's very, very Hong Kong of its time. It's more akin to Sammo Hung style humor with the Lucky Stars series than it is Jackie Chan. It's just, or some of Corey Yuen's work.
See, I think, to me, Conan Lee feels like a must. I've got him down here. I've got a note here that says Conan Lee is Muscle Chan.
As in Muscle Jackie Chan?
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that, because that's what they were actually positioning him as. Because Conan Lee was blacklisted from Hong Kong for a few years. This was his comeback film, because he's actually Eurasian. And they were trying to, he came back from America to do this film. And they were actually trying to position him as a Jackie Chan type role. I mean, that was part of it. This was a pun, because this film came out after Police Story. So part of what this film pokes fun at is Police Story. Because at the same time as this was being filmed, Police Story 2 was being filmed. There was a lot of that, and they were trying to position Conan Lee as that, because there are actually supposed to be more fights involving Conan Lee showing off his kung fu skills. But the problem was, because he'd been abroad for so long, he wasn't as comfortable doing all of the crazy, Chinese boxing, whatever you want to call it, kung fu scenes, because that fight with T Lung was supposed to be twice as long. But when they found that he didn't look as good on the film and couldn't necessarily execute, they cut it short. Because the whole thing where he pushes T Lung down and then T Lung gets up and is just like, oh, come on, relax. That was supposed to be the halfway point in the fight, because he was supposed to get up and retaliate.
Oh, okay. But they just cut it off, don't they? And go for
a beer because he just wasn't as adept as they needed him to be for that role. I mean, Bay Logan mentioned several times that Conan Lee could have been the next Jackie Chan if he had wanted to take that role, but for whatever reason, no one really knows, because he's not had an opportunity to explain his side of the story. He just didn't take that mantle on, but he was being positioned for that.
And I think it would have worked. I don't know if, off the top of my head, if I've seen him in anything else, but I thought he really worked in this.
I think he did, but equally, I don't think he made the role. I think anyone else could have played that role. So what I mean by that is like you could have supplanted it with any other good actor who was physically capable and they could have pulled it off. You know, and it's not to say he's bad. He's not. He does do the role justice, but I just don't think, as far as positioning him as a Jackie Chan type character, I don't think he carried that at the level he needed to throughout the film. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm following you.
Um,
Sorry, I'm just looking at his filmography to see if I've seen anything else.
yeah. No, I mean, again, he's a great actor. And, you know, it's really unfortunate the injury he got in the sequel, because that didn't help his career at all. Which anyone who knows what I'm talking about, that is a nasty fall. That is a nasty,
horrendous fall.
Yeah. So if you want to look it up, just look up the Tiger on the Beat 2 stunts gone wrong. It's one of the worst mess ups I've ever seen on a Hong Kong stunt. Basically, to sum it up, he jumps out he's jumping off of a bridge to a traffic pole. The idea is he's supposed to slide down it, right? So he catches it and spins and slides down like fireman's pole. Anyway, he misses. His arm clips it, he misses, and he just goes arse first straight into concrete. It's brutal. It is really brutal. So yeah, but as for the first film, there were no injuries like that. And yeah, it's got great action sequences. It's just fun. The story again is two buddy cops. I mean, this film gets compared to Lethal Weapon a lot in Western marketing, which I don't necessarily agree with because it's a totally different tone, but I can see where they're going with the buddy cop thing.
Yeah, the buddy cop comparisons there.
So I get that. But it is hilarious. It is genuinely hilarious. It's just over the top from the start. It knows what it is. It goes for it. It's got the typical Western baddies dealing cocaine. The ties as well. It's got them, as being the gangsters, because back then it was like every single, gang that was smuggling drugs was some foreign faction. And it's just, yeah, I mean, that's great. I don't know if we want to talk about the middle of the film too much because I'm holding back on getting to the finale because that is just, it's not longest thing, but it's unique.
I just wanted to say about the white actors. There's because most of them are recognizable, aren't they?
Yeah, they've been in like other Hong Kong films. I think one guy was part of Jackie's stunt team. I'm not sure.
But there's a scene towards the end where they're on the phone and Charles' sister's been taken hostage.
Yeah,
and the white guy has got the creepiest voice I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, they do the well, he's
on, baby.
Yeah, they do that. I think he's meant to be somewhat effeminate because when they introduce him, because when he gets introduced, they're all checking a shipment of cocaine. And he's like standing in the middle and it's his job to check it. And he's like, hey guys, just let me check it. Hey, it's okay.
With a Garfield teddy.
Yeah, with a Garfield teddy on. And he's got mascara on and he's just doing the full nines. And he's like, hey, let me check this. And yeah. So I think he's supposed to just be that quote unquote creepy, weird white guy. That's a bit
brilliant.
I do think that's supposed to be part of his character. So, and it works. It's hilarious. It does work. But yeah, they have him threaten the Chow's sister, who's played by Shirley Ng, if I'm saying that correctly, who's another beauty. Now, funnily enough, Shirley and Nina both got their start in Seventh Curse.
Oh, just make a connection in my head, yeah.
Yeah, which I didn't realize because when I watched Seven Curse late last year, I was making these connections in my head. I'm like, I've seen these people before. When you watch a film where you recognize actors and actresses and you're like,
yeah, all the time.
I know this person, but I don't know where they're from. It's a great film. And yeah, basically he's threatening to do things to Mimi, because they're trying to do an exchange for their boss, basically for the sister. And it just, it comes across, if you're a Westerner watching it, it just comes across as like, really, the guy with that voice is being the creeper. Really, you can't take it seriously. But
it's brilliant. And then Conan Lee shouts down the phone, doesn't he? He snatches the phone off
yeah,
Chow,
and he's like,
and he shouts "fuck you" down the phone in
yeah,
English.
yeah.
Oh,
It's
brilliant.
just like I said. This film has everything 80s Hong Kong action comedies have in spades. It's just ridiculous. But again, in all of the best ways. The film was a big hit in the box office at Hong Kong. Was really a smash hit. Now, interestingly enough, these are the types of roles that Chow Yun-fat prefers to play. He actually prefers doing the Joker or the romantic. That's what he prefers to all of the stuff he's known for in the West with A Better Tomorrow, Hard Boiled, the actioner thing. He actually prefers these roles.
That doesn't surprise me.
Because that is more natural for him. And also,
you can see he's having a good time.
Yeah, he's having an absolute blast with it anytime he does this. And also, I mean, that's what apparently Hong Kong audiences know him for, which I would believe. Even though obviously A Better Tomorrow made his career as a leading man, he certainly at this time was working at such a rate in many of these different roles. Between, I think, after 86, after A Better Tomorrow came out, he was just in so many films. I mean, even like, it's just insane. I think he did something like 40, 30 films in the space of 2 years. It was ridiculous. I mean, don't quote me on that. I haven't actually looked at it, but I know it was a lot of movies. And I mean, he was in demand. And again, most of the roles he did were roles similar to this. Speaking of which, there is a Better Tomorrow reference within the film. I will not say where or when or how, but those with eagle eyes can spot it.
I think you told me about this, but I've forgotten.
You didn't even recognize it on rewatch after I told you.
Do you know what? I finished watching it this morning as well. I watched half of it last night and half this morning. It's got to be in the T lung scene.
No. Okay.
Okay, tell me later.
I will tell you this, but I'm going to edit it out, but I will tell you just for you. Those of you listening that didn't hear what I just said, I just told him because Nathan would rack his brain for ages trying to figure that one out. So I've just told him.
Kill me. And another thing that we got to give Chow credit for is he must have an incredibly strong stomach. Because anybody who can eat that breakfast.
What do you mean? You don't have 12 eggs in the morning?
What kind of man are you? Eggs, a cold glass of Horlicks, and 2 plates of food.
And 12 eggs for male virility.
I mean, wow. And he downs them. Yeah,
that's a one take. He does that for real. Yeah.
And those hiccups were real.
I have no idea. They didn't seem real to me, but
I thought they did.
I don't know. I don't know about that, but yeah. I mean, the juxtaposition of that opening scene where he pees his pants with the gun in his mouth as well.
Oh, it's brilliant.
I mean, considering how at that time he was known for being a bit of an action badass, as it were, that's just like, it's just brilliant. Because here he's just...
Sorry, keep going.
No, here he's just playing what's known as the chocolate police officer, which is someone who just sits inside all day, waiting out for retirement, that kind of thing.
Right, okay.
Doesn't really want to get involved.
His shirt game is amazing.
His what game? Sorry?
His shirt game.
Oh, yeah, his shirts in this are something else. All the different Hawaiian shirts and just, yeah. I mean, I would argue it's only second to his sweater game in his filmography. His jumper
this is true.
Sweater game is next level. The shirts in this film, second. Very close second. And anyone who's seen more of his films will know exactly what I'm talking about there because he just has a phenomenal selection of jumpers.
He really does.
So,
and I can imagine that he's kept them all.
I would. They look comfy.
I would as well.
I mean, I had some like that in the 90s, but they don't fit me anymore, so I don't have them anymore. But yeah, I had some like that.
Would you rock them now?
Hell yes, I would.
Good man.
I mean,
and his English in this is brilliant. Yeah,
no, true. It's not the A Better Tomorrow 2 English. It's
very
really
much,
good.
thank you. brilliant. The way he delivers those lines and the way he looks when he says it, it's just comedy gold.
His charm's just on full, basically.
Oh,
it's just the classic Hong Kong Chow Yun-fat. It's when I think of Chow, when I think of him, this is how I think of him. You know, I don't necessarily think of him as, you know, hard-boiled tequila all the time. But I understand that because of the West and typically that would be how people would think of him as, or they would think of him from Better Tomorrow. And, you know, because those are iconic roles. But for me, you know, having seen a good chunk of his filmography now, and I will still be watching more. I'm not done. Yeah, these are the roles where he shines to me. Like, he really, really does. And you can tell, as Nathan mentioned, he's having a lot of fun on screen.
Oh, he's loving it.
So he didn't actually come back for the second one, according to what he said, because there's multiple reports as to why he didn't come back to the second one. But what Chow has said in an interview in the past is that he didn't feel his chemistry with Lee was that great. So that's why he didn't want to come back for the sequel.
Michael Chow! Michael Chow!
Michael Chow!
See, whereas I thought they worked well together.
Yeah, I mean, obviously obviously we saw the finished product on screen, so
yeah, true.
You know, there could have been things in takes and stuff that maybe didn't work. I don't know. You know, there's no real, from what I've seen, there's no real behind the scenes footage of Tiger that I've been able to track down. So, you know, who knows? But I think that could also come back to that idea that Chow made the film because the second one didn't do well at all. The first one was box office smash in Hong Kong. The second one completely just died. And in the second one, I believe that Chow Yun-fat's character was replaced by Danny Lee.
Oh, good replacement though.
Yeah, but for whatever reason, it just didn't work.
That's a shame. I mean, I haven't.
I haven't seen it yet either. I haven't seen it now. I want to as well. But yeah,
I really like Danny Lee.
No, I like Danny as well. I think he's great. I mean, obviously his iconic role is the killer, isn't it? But Chow carries the film, and then he's got a great supporting cast around him. That's how I interpret this film.
Yeah.
He's got the right people in the right place around him. They did a really good job. The whole crew, everyone. You know, the girls all the way through. They just all do a wonderful job. But the heart of the film is definitely Chow's character. Even though it was supposed to be a vehicle for Conan Lee, which it could have been if he'd have chosen to follow up on it. It certainly could have been. I mean, the guy fought with those chainsaws like a beast.
Oh, that chainsaw fight.
Yeah, which I suppose we have to talk about. So there's two in the finale. There's two fight sequences which stand out. There's one involving Chow Yun-fat and a shotgun.
Hey!
Which, that gif is like well known. GIF to be politically correct.
Is that how you say it?
That's how you're supposed to say it, yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that. Sorry, please continue. But you've blown my mind with
that. So, yeah, there's a scene where basically he shoots a shotgun around the corner. You have to see that to believe it. There's no way to explain it. You just have to go watch it. However, following that, there's a bit of a brawl, and then he ends up fighting the main bad guy, the main Western bad guy. He pulls out, I think he's got an M16. I'm not a gun expert, so bear with me. But he pulls out a knife and attaches it to the end of the gun like a bayonet. So it's like a modern bayonet. And then Chow pulls out, what is that weapon called? It's a traditional Chinese. It's one of the traditional Chinese swords. It almost looks like a machete.
I've got it down as a machete.
Yeah, I know it's not just a machete. It's supposed to be a Chinese version because of the way it's curved. But I don't know exactly what it is. So apologies if there's any history buffs out there that do know. Please feel free to let me know. But yeah, he attaches that to the end of his shotgun, and then they have this spear sword-like battle with their guns, basically. And the principle is the one that is bigger wins. So size matters, because the machete, as Nathan calls it, is like 3 times the size of the knife that the bad guy sticks on the end of his M16. And they have like,
It's a good fight.
yeah, they have like a 2-minute sort of, it's like spear, it's like old school spear fighting that you would see in some of the Shaw Brothers films. It's like that kind of choreography. And yeah, and then that cuts from there. That's great. No one talks about that. And then what everyone does talk about is it cuts from there into a chainsaw fight, which is just genuinely two men going at it with chainsaws as if they were swords.
Gordon Liu, isn't it? I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name, but
I think so. But it's really well choreographed. It's the one thing probably everybody remembers about this movie. For me, it's the Mini. I don't know what model Mini it is, but there is a Mini that they drive that always sticks out in my mind. And yeah, but the chainsaw fight at the end is pretty iconic because they just go at it. I mean, it's just they're swinging them around like lightsabers almost and crazy. I don't know how to describe it. It's one of the best things I've ever seen committed to film as far as like a fight scene goes.
And the stunts are legit.
Yeah, the stunts are legit, as Nathan says. Yeah, there's nothing super groundbreaking in this film in terms of major set pieces for stunts, but all of the stunts that are there are really good. You know, most of them are like fight scene type stunts. So it's like brawling, people going through glass, you know, doors getting kicked in. There's a car chase one in a dock. That's pretty famous as well, where Conan Lee's stunt double is attached to the car. He's hanging on to the Mini and they just drive through crates and stuff while there's guns going off. Really, really good. Like I said, I
did like the I called it the ladder jump.
Yeah, so Conan Lee did that one himself.
See, I'm surprised he didn't do the car himself.
No, well, the thing is, right, Conan Lee has a stunt double who looks like almost one-to-one like him.
Ah, okay.
There's a stunt guy, I've forgotten the actor's name, but there is a stunt guy who is like a one-to-one clone of Conan. So he's able to do close takes and stuff for him.
Well, that makes his life easier then.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so yeah. I mean, again, I highly, highly recommend this film. Anyone who's seen my letterbox sees it's in my number one position for favorite films of all time. The reason for it is it's not because I think it's a Kurosawa classic or a John Woo masterpiece or, you know, Steven Spielberg. Pick any arty director that everyone likes to talk about, Shunji Awai. You know, this film just does what it sets out to do incredibly well. And that to me is what makes this one of my favorite films, because it just does everything it means to do in an excellent executed package. And it does so unabashedly. So, you know, and that to me is what makes a good film. I would highly recommend anyone checking this out if you're into action comedy, especially if you're a fan of Hong Kong comedy, if you just want to see what Hong Kong comedy is like and you don't mind the whole violence towards women's side, you know, and you just want to have a laugh, have fun, go away, watch it. You will not be disappointed. Again, unless you've got a strong aversion to this type of film. But that's not what we talk about here. Okay, so this is kind of a depressing film to talk about. The reason why I say it's depressing is because this was Benny Chan's last film. Rest in peace.
Rest in peace, Benny.
Yeah, legendary Hong Kong director. I haven't seen most of his work. I think I might have seen one other film, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. But this is my first film I've seen where I know who Benny Chan was going into it. Right. So like,
I love The White Storm.
Okay. I trust you on that. So anyway, this is Raging Fire 2021. Am I correct on that? Was it 21 when it finally came out? Because I know it was delayed because of COVID.
I think it's 2021. Yeah.
Yeah.
2021.
So 2021 with Donnie Yen. This was also my first Donnie Yen film, and Nicholas C. I know all the kung fu guys are just sitting out there going, "What? This is your first Donnie Yen film? What's wrong with you?"
Wait. This is your first Donnie?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. See, surprises. Didn't tell you that.
Yeah, you kept that one in the bag.
So this is my first Donnie Yen film. How to explain this? So obviously, part of the reason we're talking about this, Cine is putting out a Blu-ray, which by the time this episode will have dropped, will be released. You know, the sexy looking steelbook. I have to admit, I was so tempted to buy it, but I just, no. I have to be smart.
DVD.
And No, I'll be getting the standard edition Blu-ray. However, yeah, Cine Asia have just put this out in the UK. It released, I think, sometime in November for the US under Wellgo USA over there. So this is a readily available film. Yeah, Nathan, I'll let you talk first because I have mixed feelings on this film, but I'll let you go and you can ask me stuff.
I'm just going to launch straight into it. That
Okay.
I really loved this. I really did. I mean, I think it's got all the classic elements of a Hong Kong action film. You know, cops, robbers, bad guys doing bad stuff, which isn't an easy thing to find nowadays. You know,
True.
a lot of Hong Kong action it's gone downhill, hasn't it?
I don't watch it, so
exactly.
Which I know is Nathan's point because I know what he's saying. Yeah, I like I said at the beginning of the show, I don't really watch modern Hong Kong or necessarily totally modern Japan, but especially Hong Kong because I have found personally that a lot of the charm from the quote unquote golden age is gone. It's not to say the films aren't good; they're not well made, they're not well acted. There's just something missing that for me, growing up with Hong Kong cinema is part of what made Hong Kong cinema Hong Kong cinema. So, you know, that's just my personal feelings on that. If you like it, great. You know, I do think so. I mentioned that I have kind of a mixed view on Raging Fire. I liked it, but I didn't like it as much as most people seem to. What I mean by that is like the film is good, it's fine, but to me there was nothing stand out in it. Like
See, this makes me wonder.
When I think back to, just to give you an example, Nathan, and people listening so they understand where I'm coming from. When I think back to most of the Hong Kong action movies I have watched, there's always a couple of things that I can remember clearly in my mind that stick out in my mind, be it the hospital scene from Hard Boiled, the when we're just talking about action now, okay, the hospital scene from Hard Boiled, the church scene in The Killer, A Better Tomorrow, the ending sequence, that whole ending sequence. And I do mean the whole ending sequence, not just the part where they're shooting guns. The whole ending always sticks out in my mind. A Better Tomorrow 2, you've got the rice scene, as well as the shootout at the end.
Yep.
Police Assassins, for example. Sorry, I'm saying Police Assassins because I'm looking at my DVD. That's Yes, Madam. For those that don't know, it was released in the UK as Police Assassins. The whole fight scene with Michelle Yeoh and Cynthia Rothrock in the at the end, that sticks out in my mind. It just basically nearly every film I can pick out from my collection, there's something that really stands out to me. There's a sequence or a scene, a segment, an act of a film that really, really stands out. Raging Fire for me, while it is good, it felt safe. Like, given the names involved, I was expecting more than what was delivered. And it's not to say that what was delivered isn't good, because it is, and some of the fight sequences are great and stuff, but I don't know. I was expecting more than the amount of minivan chases.
I do love me a minivan chase.
I know there's quite a lot. Now, to be fair to the film, though, something which did stick out about Raging Fire to me is I saw more of Hong Kong in this single film than I think I have any other Hong Kong film in terms of locations, because the way they do the car chases and stuff, they really show you different parts of the city and different areas of the island. So to its credit, there's that. Yeah.
See, I'm wondering, right, if this would have had more of an impact on you, if you'd have seen more modern Hong Kong.
Maybe, but equally, would it have? Because my general feeling towards modern Hong Kong is like, meh, to begin with.
Whereas I think that what really propped this one up for me is, I mean, I'm not the biggest Hong Kong fan anyway. I mean, I love Hong Kong. I love Hong Kong film. But
No, I know you're more Japanese, and I know that that's
Japan's
more your
my
thing.
first love.
Yeah, I know that in terms of film. Yeah,
but I have seen a fair amount of recent Hong Kong action. Well, I say recent, I mean the past 20 years. And I think this is a true standout of that period,
I believe you.
Which most people will say is a crap period.
Yeah, and I believe you on that. And again, I'm not talking down on the film. I think it's a good film. I'm still going to go buy it. You know what I mean? But it just didn't, based on the reviews and based on what people were saying about it, and also with it being Donnie Yen, because for years I've heard that Donnie Yen is a master. Donnie Yen is the best. Donnie Yen was the next Jackie Chan. He was the next Bruce Lee. He was the next best action director since John Woo. Blah, 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 blah. And, you know, this is my first Donnie Yen film, and I liked his performance. Don't get me wrong. I really actually liked his performance. His performance to me in this was great. Mm-hmm. Another problem I have with it is I did not like Nicholas C's performance. A lot of what I saw going into this film, expectation-wise, was that Nicholas C stole the show. Nicholas C was the best villain to come out of Hong Kong in a while with this performance. And
no, I don't agree with that.
Again, for me, so I think this is a case where my expectations were set a bit too high going in, even though I kept my head on straight, thinking like, okay, it's a modern Hong Kong flick. Let's see what it's got. But it's Benny Chan. So, again, I don't mean any disrespect to the film at all, but for me, the things which it needed, which it was lacking in, is it needed some more standout action pieces. It needed a stronger villain. And it also just needed something a bit more unique. Something that kind of, because I felt like I'd seen the story before. I can't explain this at all.
100 times.
I felt like I've seen the story before. Even the hostage situation, I felt like I've seen that. The finale sequence was ripped straight out of an anime, I swear. I couldn't tell you which one, but the whole fight in the church, I've seen that before. Even down to Nicholas C's last line about his regret and action. I swear to God, that's a reference to a manga or an anime line I've heard before.
His hair is magnificent, though.
His hair is magnificent, yes. But,
thank you.
It just, again, it didn't stand out as much as I was expecting it to and hoping for it to. It was a good film. I still enjoyed my time watching it, but the ending left me feeling a bit meh.
I loved the church fight personally.
Yeah, well, I know you don't watch anime, but that's something which is like a classic anime trope, yeah. Right? And it's just like, okay, fine. It was good. Still recommend it to people that are fans of Hong Kong action, but yeah, as my first Donnie Yen film, it doesn't exactly make me itching to go and check out the rest of his work.
See, an interesting thing there is this is my favorite Donnie Yen performance.
Okay.
I like Donnie Yen a lot. He is a phenomenal martial artist. There's no taking that away from him. But for me personally, and this is probably an unpopular opinion, I don't think he's a great actor.
Right. Okay. Well, it's like me with Jet Li, right? Like I've seen a couple of Jet Li films. I haven't seen his classics.
Great comparison.
But Jet Li, I can take or leave Jet Li. He's never really blown me away. Now, I've been told to go watch Once Upon a Time in China, and I promise everyone I am planning on doing so. And I'm sure his work in that is excellent from all the clips I've seen. But all the films I've seen of him, which are more of his later career films, like post 95, 96, like his modern, where he's playing modern characters, I take it or leave it. He's just there. He just does the job. That's it.
See, for me, going back to Donnie, he has a tendency to overact.
Does he? Right. I don't know this.
for me, a lot of people will probably disagree with that.
I thought
his here
from Raging Fire was
very toned down.
I thought it was a really strong performance. I thought he did a great job. I just feel like those around him didn't match. His crew was good, like his team, his tactical team, they were good. But I just kind of, I don't know, he needed more on the opposite end to really emphasize his work.
Yeah.
And that's no disrespect to any of the actors involved. It's just
No.
it's like, okay, so there's the scene everyone talks about, the shootout, which people call a reference to Heat. I didn't get Heat vibes from it at all. It just felt like a shootout going through Hong Kong. Okay.
Really?
Yeah. Now there were shocking moments because obviously there was the killing of the civilians and stuff. But I think part of the reason why is because when you talk about Michael Mann's Heat, there's a lot of time spent building up sympathy for De Niro's character and his crew and presenting his crew where they come from, what they're about, right? Yeah. Now, there's a similarity here in the fact that Nicholas C is betrayed in his view because he breaks the law, he kills somebody, and then he gets betrayed by people who try to uphold the law 100%. The thing is, with C's character and his crew, they've gone beyond the deep end. They're just crazy. That's the whole point. They're just merciless. Now, when you watch the Heat shootout, there's more elements of humanity from De Niro's crew, as has been established, like trying to save the girl. Like he's using her as a hostage, but he's trying to save her, get her out of harm's way, because that's why he picks her up. It's not to be. Whereas C's characters and his crew, they're just killing everyone. Just fucking, they're in the way, fucking dead. No, I know, but I also know you like that kind of. Okay. This is important going forward. Nathan has a thing for films where everybody dies at the end. He's just,
the more deaths, the better.
Yeah, he's got a thing for that. And, but in terms of the pure Heat comparison, right? The camera work. Okay, so the Heat shootout is iconic. When you think about the way it's done, the pacing of it, the shots, like the cinematography.
The sound,
yes. Now, I didn't get any of that vibe from Raging Fires. It's not to say it was bad. I still enjoyed the sequence, but I felt like the sequence should have ended there. It should have been a better sequence. It should have ended there versus going to the church fight. Because by the time they got to the church fight right afterwards, it was like, really? It just felt like they were dragging it out. I mean, I understood why, but
the dragging it out thing is an interesting point because I wanted to get to that as well. I do think it's too long. 2 hours, it doesn't need to be.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, if maybe that's part of my problem with it, as in why it didn't grab me. Because I kind of feel like it's also the type of film that if I'd have seen it in the cinema, I might have liked it a bit more.
Yeah.
Because it does feel like it's that kind of film that needs to be seen on the biggest screen possible with the best possible sound system.
There is an action sequence that I think could easily be cut out and adds nothing to the film whatsoever, and that's the bomb sequence
with the wife.
With the wife,
yeah,
it's terrible.
Yeah, I didn't. Okay, so I saw that coming. Right, as soon as the film opened, I saw that coming because I knew. I just have this thing about stuff like this where it's like, okay, right. So I knew going in that there's a personal rivalry happening here because of all the promotional material and all the clips that were released. And it's like, oh, he's the protege and this, that, the other. And that side of the film was interesting. I just didn't feel like it was done justice, really. Like the story should have been better, in my opinion.
I think the story's hurt as well by the slow reveal of what actually happened between the two main characters.
Yeah. Now I'm remembering exactly why. This was one of the big things. You just hit the nail on the head. They drug it out way too long, and they tried to. The whole thing about him finding out it was him. The whole thing about Donnie's character finding out it was Nicholas C's character. I've forgotten the names. Forgive me.
Yeah,
but it felt like that took way too long. with not a lot happening to justify it.
Agreed. I'll definitely agree there.
And then when it was revealed, the stakes weren't really upped. This is what I mean. It feels like the film kind of got to a certain intensity level and then just stayed there.
Yep, I see that.
It didn't like go beyond. I know the wife scene will do things for a lot of people, but for me it was predictable. And then the fact that he didn't lose the baby as well, spoiler, which was nice to see because that's a bit different. But then it was like, well, he's almost out on his arse as well because of the, he's viewed as a loose cannon cop.
Yeah, because he fired at the team, didn't he?
Yeah.
See, the whole thing is just dumb to me.
Yeah, it's like, and this is nothing on Donnie's performance. I think his performance is great. It's one of the things which I enjoyed about the film the most. But it felt muted. It felt like the brakes were on. There was a point where it just felt like the brakes were on for the whole film. To me, that's the best way I could describe it. It built and started good, and it raised, and then it just felt like it kind of stuck in fourth gear and just.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. Like I say, most of my enjoyment for the film is coming from two places. One, I can hang my hat on maybe 75% of the action sequences, which I think are really good, with the exception of the bomb scene, which I think is just adds nothing and could easily lose that, and you probably save 10 minutes of the film that way. And I didn't like the motorbike chase.
I thought the motorbike chase was well done, but I thought the result was a bit. Again, it felt like that should have led to something more than it did.
Yes. Yeah, I can see that as well. And I didn't like I've seen quite a few people complain about the CG in the film, and that was the only part where I actually noticed bad CG.
Yeah, to be fair, I didn't notice any real bad CG in that. Like, to be completely honest, there was like one part. I think it was that part. Might have been another part. I don't know, but there was nothing that stuck out in my mind that I can remember. Like at all. So. Again, it's a good film. I still recommend it. Benny Chan's last film. Donnie Yen did a great job. I know some people really like Nicholas C's performance. Again, for me personally, having seen this type of story done before, I felt like it needed more. But again, that's just me.
He sold it for me. I really liked him. I've seen him in quite a few things before, and
I think it was my first Nicholas C film as well.
He's an acquired taste. I know a lot of people love him. I know some people who absolutely detest him.
Well, he seems to have come up in that era of Hong Kong when I kind of started to not really like most of what the output was.
Yeah.
Just in general, in terms of the industry changing. So maybe that's a bias on my part, an unconscious bias, but because I'd never heard of him. When everyone was like, "Oh, Nicholas C," I'm like, "Who's Nicholas C?" Sorry.
I think you'll come around on him, to be honest. Not in this particular film, but I think, like I said, I haven't seen all of his films.
Well, I've got Time and Tide has been sitting there in my watch pile, and he's in that, I think.
I've not seen that, but I back his Benny Chan collaborations pretty hard.
Mm-hmm.
Stool Pigeon. What else did he do? Beast Stalker. Beast Stalker's great. Did Benny Chan do Invisible Target? That's pretty good.
I think so. I'm not sure. I'd have to check Letterboxd.
Yeah, Benny Chan. In fact, yeah, he's great with Benny. I haven't seen too much of his. Yeah, Invisible Target, Beast Stalker, Stool Pigeon, Viral Factor. Yeah, he's done some good films, but he's never been the highlight in them for me.
Right. Okay.
Until this film, which I thought he was really bloody good in.
Yeah. No, I understand. Also, I feel kind of bad. I know we talked about this off air going in, but I wanted to cover Raging Fire because it is the most recent release. at the time this episode will drop. And I know it was highly anticipated, especially by classic Hong Kong heads. So, I definitely still recommend the film. Again, I didn't hate the film. I didn't, it just didn't strike me as hard as perhaps it should have. So that's my only takeaway from the film in terms of how I feel about it. And again, I like to stay positive in general. So that's why I feel kind of bad that because I had no idea going into this film if I was going to like it or hate it or whatever. But it was enjoyable. I still didn't regret watching it at all. I would have liked to have seen it on a big screen for sure. That was definitely a vibe I was getting. Especially with the way the set pieces are shot and framed, it does give an impression that it was designed to be a big picture film.
Absolutely.
There's nothing wrong with that at all. So, but unfortunately, that's just not what I was able to see it as. So,
no,
yeah.
I think it only got a limited run over here, didn't it?
Yeah, very limited run. It was very limited. And obviously, when it came out too, stuff was peaking here as far as the virus goes and things. So, yeah, it's slightly unfortunate. But, one day I'll watch it on a big TV when I get one, and someday, maybe my opinion will change on it over time. I'm used to my opinion changing on films. It's like Hereditary, for example, the first one we talked about. Right now, I feel like I can take or leave the film. Back in the day, I absolutely loved it. I still highly recommend it. It's still classic. But for me, I'm a bit burnt out on it. So,
yeah, no, it's totally understandable.
Tiger's still Tiger. Solid classic.
Tiger's the highlight of today.
Yes. Well, Year of the Tiger. So that's why we had to talk about Tiger on the Beat. So, yes, very deliberate decision. Totally not biased at all. I mean, do you have anything else to say on Raging Fire or anything?
No. I think, did I talk about Nicholas's action?
No.
Yeah, I think just to go back to that really quickly, I think he really carried it well in this film. Especially, I don't know if there's a name for it, but the close action, stabby knife stuff.
And CQC stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting element to add. I will admit that was a bit different. That was nice.
I'm a big fan of some close action stabbiness. And
it's funny. This coming from the man who tells me, like, if it doesn't have guns, I'm not interested.
I'm fine without guns, but usually it's got to be Yakuza running around with sashimi knives tied to their hands, raiding offices.
Yeah, well, we'll get to Riki someday.
Damn straight we will.
No, I totally understand. I mean, obviously I go between both, right? So, and having done some martial arts in the past, I can appreciate some of what I see on screen when it comes to the choreography.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I know the initial run of this episode probably flowed a bit awkwardly, and I apologize for that. Obviously, this is the first one, and as we get into more, we'll get a flow going, and we'll be tweaking the formula, quote unquote, as if there is one. Formula is rice, but we'll be kind of tweaking things as we go. So bear with us. I'm sure by the time the third, fourth episode comes out, we'll be well into a good flow. This is our genuine first time recording.
I've never recorded before.
Well, I've recorded before for different things, but yeah, I mean, it's Nathan's first time. Be gentle with him. And as for me, it's my first time actually sitting down and talking about these films properly. So outside of posts I've done on Facebook and everything, and I'm looking forward to doing more episodes in this series. I need to talk to you offline about when we're going to record the next, by the way, Nathan.
Yep.
But yeah, so speaking of which, the next episode will be a Valentine's special. We'll be going down the essence of Asian love cinema. No, just kidding. We'll be covering
get all cozy together.
Yeah. Honestly, okay. If you know the films that we've picked, you'll know that this is the furthest thing from a serious romantic episode coming up, but it's something for everyone for Valentine's Day. So we'll be covering Diary of a Big Man, which is another Chow Yun-Fat comedy that is just hilarious. Basically, he finds himself in a relationship with two women somehow and getting married to two. And then he manages it. Yeah, it's crazy. It's just crazy. We'll be covering Yakuza in Love, which is Mochizuki film.
Oh yes.
It's part of that trilogy. What's the trilogy called again, Nathan?
The No Good Middle-Aged Yakuza trilogy.
Yeah, story of my life, right? So we'll be covering that. Now, I've had this film for a while and I have seen the other two in the trilogy, but I haven't intentionally not watched this yet. So the input I'll have on that will be a first watch for me. So looking forward to that. And then we're sort of flip-flopping on Korean. My Sassy Girl, possibly. Yeah. If I can pick it up. I don't know if I'll be able to pick it up yet. We'll see. Because that's one I missed back in the day. I know it's got a reputation and it was quite good, but I missed it back in the day. Failing that, if I can't acquire the DVD, we will be getting, we'll do Petty Romance, it's called, which is another Korean romantic comedy from 2010, 2013, 2010, somewhere in there. All those years blend together in my head.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, but I know My Sassy Girl is a favorite of yours, Nathan, so I'd like to be able to cover that if we can.
I'll make it happen.
Yeah, so all good. So yeah, thank you everyone for tuning into Foxflix Rice. Super appreciated. The next episode will be dropping just before Valentine's Day. Touch wood, fingers crossed. And then we will be turning our attention to episode 3, which will be our first Cat 3 episode. Oh, yeah. Which happens to be about Black Cat. So yes, puns. But yeah, we'll be covering the Black Cat series as well as the 88 Films Deluxe Edition release. I'll be reviewing that Blu-ray and I'll be talking about that. I'm very, very excited for that. Black Cat historically has been one of my favorite Cat 3 films. So yeah, and it is the one that launched Jade Lung's career. So Nathan says he hasn't seen it. What's wrong with you? Bulgaria.
Huh? I haven't. I'm very much looking forward to it though.
No, yeah. So yeah, we'll be covering the first film, the second, and the third. The third one, as far as I know, is not that good, but I haven't seen that yet. I've only seen the first two. So yeah, we'll be covering the trilogy as a March special. So that episode might go a bit long. But yeah. And then we've got something cooking for April.
Is that what I think it is?
Yes. I'm wincing because I know it's a bit of a mystery, but I didn't want to cover any of these films so quickly. But, well, opportunity presents, one must take. So, yeah, it is what you think it is. And also, the other reason why Nathan is like laughing right now is because he knows what it means for me. So
it means a hell of a lot of work.
Yes, it does. But I'm hoping to do that film justice. And yeah. So that will be announced in the March episode. So yeah, but until then, 2 episode drops for February, which will be the norm every year. And then we'll be going to single monthly for now. Hopefully we'll be able to do some live shows at some point. I'd like to do that if we can.
Yeah, I'd like to do that as well. That's
sort of with the community on YouTube. So, and for those that are wondering, these shows will eventually make their way to the podcast networks, but it's going to take some time. So for now, everything will be dropping on the YouTube channel, and then I'm hoping around about April, May to have the podcast seeds up. So, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and be available on those. So yeah, but just bear with me. But as soon as that's ready to go, I'll have all of the archive up on there as well as new episodes dropping at the same time. But yeah, Happy New Year. And
Happy New Year.
Hopefully it is a prosperous one for us all and a healthy one, because health is still very important. So yeah, thank you very much. Respect the rice and see you next time.
Thank you very much.